Good morning, afternoon or evening, and welcome to another game of Zero AD as a tutorial. So the game we're looking at today follows on pretty nicely from my previous game that was shown sort of in the previous episode, where I was shafted by some rams coming around the back of my base unexpectedly and basically destroying everything, so I hadn't left anyone there to stop them. So I was very wary of that when I started this game, so I'll go through build order or whatever at the beginning, then we'll get to the point where there's some action. So I am here at the bottom. I'm red. No, I'm not. Sorry, I'm there at the top. That was a pretty awful start. Okay, so I'll switch this round so that it looks like the right way round. So I've done my usual build order, which is I get to send a group of everyone basically off to build a storehouse, but then I'll send the women immediately after to go and build a farmstead, and they will then go and forage while the soldiers get straight off to chopping wood. I've got an additional 4 women to begin with, and they will go straight into chopping wood as well. Although I believe they may actually just, first of all, I'll probably get them to build a house, and then by the time the additional people are required, there'll be sufficient space in my capacity, so I won't house myself. Also, I think I've only got the one cavalry at this point, but if we looking around, there's not a great deal of hunt, so I wouldn't have, or there doesn't appear to be a great deal of hunt, but I always like to get an additional cavalryman because it's so quick to basically clean up these chickens. Just creates a lot of food, and they can also do a little bit of scouting around afterwards. So as you can see, the women are building the house, which, along with 2 of the men who have now been sent to not build the house, and I'm not building anyone at the moment, which isn't very good, but that's possibly because I'm housed. Yes, it is, because I took a little bit too long to get those women to do what they were supposed to do in terms of building the house. But basically, the idea is that you should be producing all the time. So now that the house is up, here we go, I'm building another 4 women, and I'll carry on doing that. So if we look at my opponent, Stormshadow, his cavalry as Romans, they have these kind of lancer cavalry, which aren't really as great as the cavalry that with the javelins for hunting, particularly big animals. So he has, if we look around his base, he's got a load of animals there, so if he hadn't been Romans, maybe he would have looked to hunt those immediately. And the other thing that's very unusual is that he's got his women, his 4 women that started out, but everyone else that he has built or ordered, trained, whatever you want to call it, they've all been soldiers. So he's just got lots and lots of soldiers, and obviously they cost wood, which means he doesn't have very many buildings, and he's only got 19 population to my 24, and if he wants to do anything else, he's going to house himself, because his troops cost wood, whereas my women farmers haven't cost wood. He's very short here, so he's struggling to keep up with the population size. So looking at the map, here's a second round of berries. So having seen those, second storehouse goes up, and I've also got the berry upgrade, which allows them to forage for fruit a little bit quicker. I mean, that's a bit of a no-brainer when you've got each one of these is worth 200, and there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, and there must be nearly 2,000 food there that can just be foraged for very, very quickly. So it delays you having to build farms, which is a bonus, because they cost wood, obviously, and they're also a bit slower to actually yield any return. So my cavalry, having finished off all the chickens, have now noticed that there's a load of hunt here, which in all likelihood is going to absolutely, you can see there, spur me on to produce more cavalry, because they can hunt. Also, they're very good in both attack and defense. So in terms of the strategy, if you think about how I attempted to play the last game, it was very much how best to put it, I tried to expand to a point, but then as soon as I came into contact with the opposition, I didn't really expand sufficiently to pen him in and put him under pressure, and that's very on my mind at this point. I mean, I played this game a couple of days later, but when you've got a game that you basically won and you somehow contrive to lose, it focuses the mind somewhat on making sure that you're getting a bit better in future. So what I wanted to do at this point in this game was really secure my sort of my borders get as much as I can in terms of defence. So I've got an early barracks. Barracks are good because they give you additional territory, but on top of that, they also mean that if you've got people chopping wood and they need to, somewhere to hide out basically during an attack, if you was to send 20 or 30 horsemen, they can just go into the barracks and they defend and they shoot out arrows. I believe, I'll have to check that actually, they may not shoot out arrows, but anyway, it means that there's somewhere safe for people to go. You can build a tower and they're all safe. So at the moment I'm producing people from both the fortress and both the town centre. We've got some more people on women on the wood here, and also from the barracks, which means that I'm on a population of 30. I'm already 10 ahead of Stormshadow. Partly that is down to the fact that I've had better management of resources, but because a lot of the people have got women and they don't cost any wood, but also they take less time to train. So if we go over and have a look at him at this point, he's building or starting his wall of houses, which is a good idea, but I normally put it out the front because it's not actually that useful to have them there. One of the good uses for houses are places, if you've got woodcutters that are female, it's somewhere for them to hide, but I suppose as he's got so few women, I believe he still only has those 4. In fact, if I play as Stormshadow, I should be able to, at this point, have a look. He still only has those 4. If you look, he's building Roman skirmishes, every 8 or 9 seconds, or maybe 10 seconds, which, each to their own. But he hasn't scouted any of the areas. He's got 3 additional cavalrymen, and he's putting up a farmstead over here, which is a good idea because he's seen there's loads of animals, and that will reduce the amount of time that it takes to get to drop that food off. So once they've picked up the meat from the carcasses, they'll just be able to go straight back to here rather than coming all the way back to the town centre and all the way back out again. So that's a very good idea. It also gives you access to upgrades for farming, which will be important. But the thing I was saying about houses is if you've got women chopping wood, then they're useful to have near that place. So take this for example, I have a house here. The house has a capacity for garrison of 6 women. Okay, I've got 11 women, but 2 houses, they can all run into there, and the soldiers would be able to hide out in the barracks, and that's a much better use of, or way of saving their lives basically. And if I had a tower up here as well, that would also be basically another place for the men to hide. So at this point I'm still at phase 1, but I believe he beats me to phase 2. He's not going to phase 2 just yet, which is, if you look at this moment, 7 minutes, I'm at a population of 62, he's at 41, so I'm 20 ahead. I normally like to be basically for the first 10 minutes, so for 7 minutes I'd like to have 70, for 8 minutes I'd like to have 80, and so on. Once you get beyond 10 minutes, then you end up with much higher levels of population, and also the ratio changes. So he's building a corral here, which is an interesting idea. What that does allow you is it gives you access to an upgrade on your horses. It can make them, I think, 20% quicker. I'm just going to speed up the game at this point because we've kind of got through the basics of our build order and everything, and now it's time to look at the action, I suppose. So he's also fortifying his base, in advance with towers again. I'm not sure about the location of these towers. This one, if it was here, it would be protecting these soldiers. As we look for those soldiers, there's 20 odd there, so they're unlikely to be a real attack that can have any lasting damage. But nonetheless, that would enhance things to have a tower there in case I was, send 40 to 50 cavalry. They would just wipe these out in a second, but that's not going to happen in the first 10 minutes of this game. We've both been fairly conservative in our approaches, not looked to expand too much, although you'll notice that I now start to move my cavalry out a bit more. And if we look from my point of view at this point, What you may think is that they were going for a raid or something. I actually decided that that was not going to be the approach, and the fact that he's created basically all soldiers made that a very fortunate decision. But what I wanted to do is to just scout where the edge of his base is, and then try and get another outpost kind of thing. So these guys are just hunting around there, which A, gives us food, but it also denies him food that's much closer to his base. So even though we've got a longer journey back, we can hunt the things closer to us later. But what you'll see is that I'll start to position horses around there, which will warn me if he's attacking, but also kind of hold the area ready for when I want to build my onward expansion. These guys are doing exactly the same thing. They were just checking out that area, and now that I've seen that there is stone and metal there, and more stone here, and more stone there, that's a good place again with these woods. Another possible place for an onward expansion. But my opponent, if we look from his point of view particularly, he still doesn't know much about the map. So he's really incredibly conservative at this point. And what he's also now started to do is he's housed himself. I'm now 30 people ahead, and he's housed, so he can't actually produce anyone else. He's just got people queued up that aren't going anywhere. He's building walls around his city. Now it's interesting, some people like to have walls around there, and it does mean that it's very difficult to break in, particularly before stage 3 when you can get siege weapons. I'm not a massive fan of it. I tend to think of it as kind of locking myself in rather than locking other people out. So, and you might think you see this a bit later in the game actually, there are times when he needs to get troops out and they're trapped in this castle that he's building, and that's not actually that helpful to him. So there's an area later on you'll see that it comes back to haunt him. But I can totally see, in theory, why you would want to do this. If this all gets built, he's waiting for me to get to phase 3 before he can even do absolutely anything. Having said that, I'm not at phase 3 yet. I need to build one more town class building. So I've got one tower here, the second tower that counts as 2, the temple counts as 3, and this is where you'll see I'm starting to build my onward expansion. So I've basically secured this area of trees, these woods, so that's useful. There's plenty of wood there, which will be useful for me, and you'll notice now just how much extra space is claimed by having that barracks right there. So that already sets my borders at a certain, significantly closer to him than he is to my base. But on top of that, once I go to stage 3, these will increase by a kind of a uniform amount, and that will just expand even further, and I'll be right on top of him. So you can see here I've got 15 cavalry. They could really be hunting, but at this point I just wanted them to make sure that we weren't going to get into any bother. Basically, I've looked around for a place to have an expansion, and with little bits of stone here, there's the city phase. So now that that's happened, I can start to think about expanding out even further and getting right on top of his base. So we have a look in my defence. Just bear in mind the 4th building was this additional tower, so 3 towers. This kind of setup that I've got here is something that I quite like for as a defensive position. I've got my market right at the back where it's protected by a tower. It's unlikely to be able to be attacked. Also, there were trees around here that have since been deforested, but using these houses here as a kind of shield, a wall of houses basically to protect my farms, but it also means that there's a place that if I ring the bell, which you can do using this raise an alert thing, you click that once. First alarm, all of the women will run into houses or the town centre, depending on which they're closest to. And a second one would do the same for the men, and they would run into barracks, towers, or the town centre, or places like this. That's what's called the prayer factory, just because of the 2 hands there, makes me think of praying. The temple. And that just means that you've got a place where you can be safe while you're under attack. But as you can see, he's made absolutely no effort to really expand or find out what's going on. He's what's called turtling. He feels presumably very, very secure in his base, that there's no way really for me to get in. Although I'm now in a position whereby I'm starting to build a fortress that sees, you see how much additional land has been seized by the fortress, and I'm going to follow that up with a second fortress as well. Also built a military colony here, and I'm going to protect that with another fortress. And you see these are the cavalry that were just there holding that spot, making sure that no one came by. And he's just reached the city place now, but if you look at the map down here, you can see just how much of the map is considered my territory as opposed to his territory. Now that his borders are right on top of mine, I would just notice that he's obviously reached the new phase, so I know that he's hit phase 3, so that means fortresses, that means champion units, and I'm now just going to have my first foray before he gets those his fortress and champion units in. So in come my horses from the right. He sends his cavalry, I take out 3 cavalry. I start with 19 of these, I've lost 2 horses. And I lose a 3rd horse as well, so we're about even. We lose roughly the same amount. I think I might take down an additional amount or something, but while my people have been happily harvesting materials, his farmers, who interestingly all of his farmers are actually soldiers who don't harvest as well as women, they've all been not harvesting food at that point. So I bring these 15 cavalry that are remaining back, and then what I'll do is I'll put them inside the temple to heal. But it's also started preparing elephants, and the reason for this is I know that the Romans have rams. I'm incredibly paranoid at this point about some rams coming in, just basically knocking down my fortresses and things. They've not got great hack armour, but they have tremendous pierce armour, and the fact is that most of my troops, if we look, are range, so they're going to have good pierce damage, but it's not going to do anything against the rams. Additionally, at this point, if we look at the turn, I'm at 200 capacity, so I'm building a wonder here that gives an additional 10 population, but you can then soup it up and give it like an extra bonus, and that will take it to an extra 50 population, which, as you can imagine, in a game where the maximum population is 200, to go to 250 is an additional quarter on top of what your enemy can do, so you're in a really strong position. Also set my second market, and I've got a number of traders now, so these 6 traders, we're going back and forth, and if we look at what I was collecting, it was just a bit of everything at this point. So what you can do though is set different things, so I could have, for instance, gone in and said, okay, I've got loads of food and loads of wood, so I want 50% to be stone and 50% to be metal, and you put those both up to 50%, and then this like a random number generator goes in and has a 50% chance of the whatever they call the trader bringing that much, bringing that resource, like whichever you pick. So at the moment this one's doing 12 stone, this one's doing 12 stone. In fact, looking at that, I think it must be okay. I think that's very suspicious. I think that maybe not showing the accurate thing, because the odds of us getting 4 out of 6 being stone are pretty slim if it was actually set to everything. But each one of these, if we look, is getting 12, so 60. If you count the amount of time it takes to get between them, it's something like 10-12 seconds. Every time you get 66 resources. No, you're not getting 72, I can't even add up there. Which is pretty amazing. So at the moment, again, he's just not really putting any pressure on me. You can see he's bartering food for stone, so he's obviously got lots of food, but doesn't have much in the way of stone. In fact, he has virtually no resources whatsoever, and that's actually, you might think that's bad, but what that actually means is that he's using his resources for something. Whereas I'm not necessarily doing that. I'm saving things because I want to also build a load of these Romanized heavy swordsmen, because they also have good hack attacking and therefore attack the rams. So, and there you go. Lo and behold, there are 2 rams he's produced from his castle. So it would be very difficult for me to get in here. He's also producing these guys, not those guys. Where are they? these ones. There. Nope. These guys. They, what are they actually? Equus Consularis, and they are the amazing, basically, pretty much the best cavalry troops that I've come across. You can see there they get a hack attack of 13, which is pretty impressive. He's sending them off as I've just gone around here, massacred his miners, but okay, I've killed the miners, but he's basically going to, you know, it's costing me a lot more than I would have liked. So they just duck into this is called the temple, so they can heal, and he's trying to capture this fortress, and he thinks he can, and ordinarily with a load of champions he would have a chance to capture the fortress, which would be an amazing strategic thing for him, but he actually can't. I'll just slow this bit down because it's actually pretty interesting, and you get to see, so because it's full of my champions, his champions, you're going to find it much more difficult to get there and actually do anything. So I send my elephants around, I've got 4 of them, but he's coming to try and attack the elephants, understandably. They will get a bit confused, it's quite difficult to actually keep control of them. So that elephant brings down this round, and all I need the elephant to do is get the next round, but just before he can do it, he gets killed. So this elephant manages to sneak down the side, then runs off to try and attack someone else for no reason. And now I just pull my elephants back, because all I want is to basically save as many of them as I can, because they'll be needed in future. I can go and stand them near the temple, and they will basically be healed. What I'm also hoping is a lot of his troops are very, very close to death now, so I've got each of these towers is fully garrisoned with 5 people. I've got the additional upgrade, which means they're firing an extra arrow anyway, and not only that, but I'm firing, they've got the second upgrade, which gives them even more, another 40%, I think it is, of arrows. So imagine there are 5 people in there, 40% of that's an additional 2 arrows, plus the 1 arrow bonus. Each time they are then firing 5 plus 2 plus 1 would be 8 arrows every second at people who are attacking, plus when you take into account I had 19 people garrisoned in this building. Again, that would mean there would be 19 arrows coming out of there. So this tower only had 3 in, but you know, fully garrisoned, it's going to be incredibly difficult for anyone other than siege weapons to get that down. And he's realised that, because here he is producing rounds and rounds and rounds. Let's have a look. He's got so much wood, which is great, but what he doesn't have is the metal to do that, but he's got a lot of metal here, but he's mining it very slowly, and I don't know if he actually has access to any more metal. Oh, he does, he's got more metal over here. I think he would be wise, like with a population of 164 versus a population of 233, which is just insanely superior. He'd be wise to actually look at increasing the number of people that are mining, because that's his most important resource. And when he's got plenty of wood, what he needs is to get the resources in terms of the metal to make as many rams as possible, because if he has a load of rams and they're protected by these really 18 of these really good knights, plus he's healing them with priests now, albeit this is going to be slower, I believe. I maybe need to maybe be corrected at some point, but I believe it's slower to heal them with these guys than it is to just put them in the temple, so he could have just done that. It always seems to be quicker you put them in temples, they seem to heal in no time. So I'm still producing these bodyguards, but I'm putting them in the first temple so that they can jump out if necessary. And over here he's now, if we look at it, a few of my guys were over this side, and he noticed they ran out an attack, which is frustrating. Sometimes you don't want them to attack, and lo and behold there's a bit of a ruckus. But I've now followed up by building another tower here. Again, I've got these heavy infantry, they're there in case of rams, and I've got a temple which will allow me to be somewhere for my units to heal, and also if they're fighting in the so if I've got archers or any kind of range units that are stuck in this area, they've got the extra bonus of being healed at the same time. And so you can see these guys have got a little plus over their head, which means they're being healed, while his soldiers that are coming there are just going to gradually be shot down one by the people that are in here and the people that are in here. Possibly, I don't know if they are shooting. Can you see any arrows coming from there? No, they don't look to have put any arrows, but these guys, there's definitely arrows in here, and there are two people putting arrows in there, so you can see them coming down, and they're suffering. And so a second fortress would basically secure this, and I've also produced some of these guys who are selected cataphracts, and so that's 10 excellent heavy cavalry. The only thing is they are like lancer cavalry, like the Romans had at the start, so although they're very, very strong, they are lancers, they're not swordsmen, which means that they charge in, have an attack, and then it takes another 3.5 seconds for them to make their next charge. So they're great for an instant sort of hit, and they can actually, I think, kill a woman in like one charge. They'd just be dead. But really, he doesn't actually have any. He's got like 4 women, that's all. And they get a bonus for farming, so he's farming more slowly than he needs to. They're going to try and take down this tower, which is fair enough, have a go. But what they'll find is we've got a fortress here. I should really put these guys in the fortress, but I think that with the support of the tower, and now these cavalry skirmishes, and these cavalry skirmishes, and you see the champions just charging in, put it down to a bit slower. They've basically taken out a phenomenal number of his troops. So this is a bit earlier than I wanted. I didn't actually want the attack at this stage, but we've kind of been drawn into it because I left my troops there. But he's got these, you can just see how good they are. They're just charging in. They're absolutely massacring people. See, they attack quicker than a second. Whereas if we can find some of this guy, you see his attack rate is every 3.5 seconds. So yeah, his hack is 14.4, which is better, but he's only doing it once every 3.5 seconds, by which time the other guy's done 4 or more attacks. Okay, these guys now are going to take out this ram, which is fine, but we need to be aware of more rams coming. What's interesting is you see this ram, because of the way he's built his thing, he can't actually get the rams out. There's a load of people that are just here in the way that were previously mining, and these rams are just trapped. So when he badly needs them, he's not actually able to access them, so it's not particularly great bit of design on his part. So now we've got these, I've brought in a load of these champions from the other thing, and also sent in some more troops around here. They're attacking more of his troops, but they're also just completely destroying things over here. He's going to lose. I mean, there are lots of these guys, but he's suddenly desperately trying to raise some resources. He's pushed his people back. They're just going to get killed. These are fully garrisoned. I've left them in full defensive mode. There's nothing you can do. And now he's sent his rams through, and he did so by destroying part of his own wall to let them out. So these are all his guys. He's moving them to safety. He's got his rams. All I need to do though is bring out my swordsmen, who for some reason I don't have any of, which is a bit frustrating. But fortunately these guys, they're just so poor. There's two of them left. They're both on their last legs, you can see, but fortunately they just survived long enough that he can't do anything about it. And I believe it's at that point that, yeah, it's like at that point he just decides to leave the game, basically. Realises all is lost, stops actually producing any new troops. I mean, if we look at his resources, yeah, he's got no stone, barely any food, because he's got nothing compared to me, who's just managed to take over the whole map and has a phenomenal amount of everything. And if I just speed it up, just to show how it goes, my way to end the game, because at this point if I want the ratings points I can't just let it go, is just to produce the most elephants you've ever seen in your life, and they just go on an absolute rampage. I think about 10 come from here, and the other elephants come from the other side. They've been stood by this temple getting re-healed, which has again got these heavy cavalry, not heavy cavalry, heavy swordsmen in there, and producing more elephants. And you'll see that very soon the elephants, off they go once they're ready on a big charge, and we're in kind of fast forward, so I'll turn it up to proper Benny Hill mode. They just go and destroy everything that's left, bang 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 bang. But if the town centre's gone, you always have to be careful with this stuff, because it may actually be that could come back and just kind of disappear once it's about destroying. So just got to get rid of everything, build troops and citizens, and just destroy them. And that's why it didn't take very long at all. And that's basically the end of the game. So to summarise, I was pretty happy with how it went. If you look at the map, absolutely destroyed, like it just completely took over the whole map and destroyed him. He's finally dead. The last of his troops have been bound and killed, and that was basically it. You can see he didn't have any way to actually get through. He couldn't launch any counter-attack. These guys just carried on with their lives happily, farming away, not causing any problems. My trading route, which was putting in 72 resources every few seconds, is well set up. He could have maybe tried to come around the outside, but it would have been very, very difficult for him to do so. And basically, I was very keen that he couldn't just go in via the back door like he did not he did, but like happened to me previously. So my fortresses were there, we used to expand. I wanted the extra 50 troops, and I had plenty of resources, so I felt that was the way to make it safe. I upgraded before the attack, not as much as I would have liked, but I did upgrade to some extent. Again, that attack happened a bit quicker than I would have liked. I wanted to prepare myself a little bit more, but at the end of the day, it was a pretty comfortable victory. So let's have a look. Now you can see that I was 18,000 points. If we look at the economy, I was well ahead of him. You look at military, it wasn't even close, and exploration was very highly in my favour. There was just nothing really that went in his way. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you find this an interesting game, and there'll be another one next week. So take care.